get interesting. We might travel more than that. Nobody knows. But briefly, can you tell me about yourself, who you are, what you did, and what you are doing now?
Yeah, I'm Junaid Duplessis. I am South African. My background is in investment banking. I spent about 18 years of my life as an investment banker. Started out at New York at Gold Program, the South African Investment Bank, Standard Bank, Nedbank, Rand Merchant Bank, mainly in mergers and acquisitions, mining and resources, and also agriculture, actually. So we have something in common. I spent some time working, which is, as you know, the large DFI on the continent. I was the chief investment officer for private sector investments, how business outside of Africa, in particular infrastructure and private enterprises, work on the rest of the continent. I lived in Abidjan for 4 years. So I regard West Africa as my almost second home in Africa. In 2000, I was a little despondent, and I had an existential crisis that investment banking is not going to save this continent. We just made and development wasn't getting any funding. So in 2009, I created an impact fund called Abrazo Capital.
Can you take that again? I think there is some kind of hitches here. You said an investment, you realized that an investment banking was not going to help Africa.
Yes, so I have to preface that to say I had my own personal existential crisis because I was working in investment banking for so long. Or certainly not as fast as investment banks were making money for shareholders, but that was not trickling down to the people that really needed development. And so I decided to create an impact fund called Abrazo Capital, and it was to invest in women in rural areas on the African continent. And by that, doing rural development and linking those businesses to urban and peri-urban businesses as supply chains, through supply chains. And we did 19 investments in 14 different African countries. And it was quite a successful fund. For an impact fund, we had an exit IRR of 19%, 19%. I then returned back to South Africa after living in West Africa for 8 years. And I started a corporate venture capital fund for one of the South African banks called Nedbank. It was a later stage tech VC fund, so Series A, Series B. I imagine you know how all the different funding stages work in tech VC. So later stages, which was great, and that's where most of the capital was, but there was still an issue in that you need enough funding and support at the earlier stages to get where all the capital is. And that was the sort of the birth of my most recent venture called Launch Africa Ventures, which is a Pan-African early stage seed fund investing in seed stage businesses. And we try to get companies to raise a successful Series A within 12 to 18 months of us investing. And that's, we regard ourselves as the bridge to their Series A.